Now, let's get straight into it.
Sure.
The last time you were here, you were not on the library board yet. I would love to know your thoughts on, I get to talk to you and hear your side of the story versus everything that has been in the media.
What's reported.
What's
right?
reported,
Yeah.
right.
Which is great because oftentimes, and that's why I love podcasts. And I want to thank you for what you do because you actually provide people, whether that's someone in my position or another position, to direct access to truth, right? Like the public, you give the public access to the real story, to the truth, to someone's real opinion instead of the filtered bias that we get from the mainstream media today.
I appreciate that.
And it's a serious problem because, look, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, we've all seen, especially through the COVID years and then stuff surrounding the presidential race and Donald Trump. And we've seen polling on this. Even the Democrats knew the media was biased, right? And there is an agenda. There is a bias. So I appreciate you asking me directly on that. And I think this is an area with the work on the library board that really highlights this issue because I don't really understand the bias we see. To me, it's not controversial to say, okay, we have look, Alabama libraries. We have children's sections that are dedicated to kids. And then we have a group of people who want to put sexually explicit stuff, books, in front of these innocent babies. And I'm going to call them babies. I know, look,
they're all our babies.
A 10, 12-year-old probably doesn't want to be called a baby.
Yeah, but they're our babies.
Like maybe I misspoke. Youth sections.
Yeah,
our youth. People that our society, since the beginning of time, have tried to protect from material that could be harmful. We don't let them smoke. We don't let them drink. We don't let them watch. We rate movies to make sure parents know, like, hey, this is an R-rated movie. You might want to be careful with your kids.
That's right.
And then we have people who think that somehow these youth sections of our libraries, we should put this. I'm going to call it what it is: trash. There is filth in some of this stuff. It's graphic. It's pictures. Just really, really intense adult content.
Right.
And it's in some of the sections that are dedicated to 6-year-olds. And for me, I'm just like, okay, stop. Like, let's take these community standards that we've had for years in our society. The idea that we safeguard our children from hard concepts. And let's take that, let's back up, and let's put parents back in control.
As you finish, help put the First Amendment in there, because some people will say, well, it's First Amendment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they'll say that it's banning books or that we're trying to use the power of government.
So please, address that as you're talking, please.
I'm glad you brought that up because, look, you are not going to find someone more supportive of the Constitution than I am.
Right.
Like, I live, eat, breathe, sleep, defending people's rights and freedoms. That's why I'm involved in the political process.
That's right.
And so I believe in the First Amendment with all my heart. I believe that people have a right to say what they want, to read what they want, to have the content they want, and they should not be censored, period. And that's one reason why it hurts me so bad. Some of these people call me a book banner or
right.
And I want to make it very clear, we are not using the power of government to take anyone's right to buy a book away.
Right.
All we're saying is, hey, this content, should we use taxpayer money to put sexually explicit content in our youth sections? And so as I was developing the new code change that would address this issue, I felt it was incredibly important to listen to people on both sides, because that's what good government does. Good government listens to people and tries to find a solution that can address both sides of the equation.
That's right.
And so when I was looking at this, I was like, okay, what if we passed a rule that said, if libraries must move content that has obscenity, sexually explicit, out of youth sections to the adult sections. But then to make sure that if there's parents out there that want their children to have access to this, we create a library card system where the parents have the ability of whether they give their child access to the adult section or not. That way the material's there. If a parent wants their child to have this stuff, which I actually encourage them not to, I think it's harmful to our youth. But if they want to, they can give them access to it. And so all we're saying is, hey, don't put this stuff in front of innocent children that their parents don't want them to accidentally stumble across sexual stuff,
Right.
inappropriate stuff in the youth section. And I think that's a common sense balance. And I think it's, I wish it was something we could all agree on, because I think it makes sense. The approach and the attempt really was to listen to both sides and give access to people who wanted it, but to make sure that parents their children didn't have access.
Sure.
And that comes to my end goal, which is making sure that every single family in the state of Alabama feels welcome in our libraries. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be trying to force a social agenda. We shouldn't be trying to sexualize our children and have a woke agenda pushing and using our libraries to push the sexualization of our children. I'm going to say no, and I'm going to be unapologetic about it. No, this is not good. It's not something that we should have, and I'm going to stand up and be bold about it.
I want to not push back, but add to something you just said there. And that is, and we talk about it all the time, words.
Yes.
The woke agenda, for example, right? Now, some people may, bristle at that, may have thoughts and comments about that. But could we, if said a different way, if we don't say a woke agenda, if we just simply say people are getting, it's too much freedom, it's too much liberty. Where do your liberties stop? My freedoms end, the whole 9 yards. And I think it's at our children. I think it's, it's like, okay, I can debate you all day about, what we should be allowed as adults. But as children?
Now, and the bottom line is going around their parents. Because look, you can argue I'm a big proponent of freedom and liberty, right? But if you're saying no, unelected government bureaucrats should have more control over what our children are exposed to than their parents do, I have a problem with that. Because then we're not looking at the liberties and the rights of the parent. Because that's where this decision should be based on.
And see, I'm going to keep it real. In my community, most parents aren't going to the library with their kids.
That's right.
And these guardrails,
that's right.
These guardrails need to be in place.
Yes, no, 100%. I'm tired of people saying, like, if you want your children to be protected, go with them to the library. So we don't.
That's not practical.
Well, and do we not want parents to be able to feel welcome and safe? Like safe sending their kids to the library to spend some time? Like that's horrible.
Right.
That's exactly what I'm opposing. I want people to feel welcome and comfortable in Alabama libraries. The parents should not have to worry about their child stumbling across this stuff. Like this, just period. They should be able to have that assurance. And I love how you put guardrails and safeguards. Like that's what this is about. It's about making sure that we respect the innocence of childhood.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. We've gotten so far away from, we're so worried about adults, and we're not paying enough attention to our children.
And our children, it goes back, and I really think this is a push of a socialist, agenda. And I said woke. Socialist might actually be a better term to use.
And I'm just saying, socialist is, I'm going to just be honest. As a Black person, I may find issue with a woke agenda because I don't feel woke, but I feel like white people are talking to me. You know what I mean?
Right. Like,
but if I
hear what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? Yes. But if it's like, okay, no, we're talking about a socialist agenda that's, and an antithesis to conservative values. Yeah, that's something that's something Black people, white people, brown people. It doesn't matter
your background, right?
But but when you say woke agenda, it's like, what, nah.
I'm going to throw out an interesting study I saw the other day.
Sure.
It was actually some polling that was done. And it asked, what is the most important issue to you personally right now? And it went through, things like Medicare expansion, taxes, all these things. But it was kind of a test survey of asking education through a different lens. And one of the questions was protecting children from woke education.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
We talked about
it.
this before. Yeah.
You know what? Even in the black community, it was the second most important issue.
Yes.
Black voters.
Yes.
And it's because I think they've seen through this. Like, yeah, look, the left would love to divide us on things like, because they win. Look, socialism works when you divide people and start looking at people as groups, whether that's racial background, whether that's religious, like whatever it is. They win when they divide us, because united, we win.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, and this is my passion, I look at every single individual as a unique person made in the image of Almighty God. Period.
Amen.
And it doesn't matter what their color of their skin is. It doesn't matter what their background is. And I think that's that's the spirit that we're feeling more and more. And whatever you call it, if you want to call it, socialism, leftist,
yeah,
it's more that agenda to divide us and to move the government into a role where they have more power, they take more money from us, they keep people in poverty, they don't give them a chance to get out of poverty. If I hear one more person come up to me, because what I hear in the poor communities is someone comes to, I try to get a job, but the second I get even a part-time job, I lose, government benefits. And I'm like, we try. The government has these policies that keep people trapped in a broken system.
That's right.
And we've got to somehow get free of this. And start actually caring about people again. Putting people first and creating systems where we don't keep people trapped in a socialist mentality where the governments are the overlords and the powerful system, they have their serfs.
Right.
We escape that. And we help people get back on their feet, and not just where they can survive, but where they thrive. And that's what I want to see. I think there's a lot of people in all areas of life, it doesn't matter what your background is, who would agree with that message.
Absolutely.
It's time we changed government, and instead of looking at it through the mentality of the government or the rulers and the people or the servants, we flip it back to the vision of our founding fathers, which is that America was created where all men were equal and endowed by their creator with unalienable rights. And it doesn't matter what your background is. We put people, we the people, first. And government was created to serve us and to help our lives be better.
I want to pivot to another type of board. And that is our school boards.
There's a lot of overlap there.
Yeah, man.
The same agenda.
And I didn't elaborate, but I dropped a note that I wanted to have a conversation with you online. I don't know if you even saw it, but about 2 Black queer single men attempting to run for Birmingham School Board. Now, we're about to do something on camera that we usually do behind the scenes, and let's have a really frank,
open
conversation. And, I'm not, you remember I told you I used to be the worst Democrat ever, and now I'm going to be the worst Republican ever. And
look, if you're going to do something, do it right. Right?
Well, this is where it is. It's like, okay, I don't have personally, I look at homosexuality the same as premarital sex. It's both wrong. Now, I have a personal bias that one is a little more grotesque than the other. But from what I understand, all sin is sin. It's equal. It is what it is.
If you're a man of faith, you base in the Bible, that's right. And it's important to keep it in that context of, look, we're all sinners.
We're all sinners.
And you got to have grace. You got to have love.
Got to have love. But I have a personal bias. And that is not necessarily with the queerdom, but with the flamboyance of it.
Well,
and hold on, let me finish.
I was going to say.
And so what I'm saying here is that these 2 individuals pursuing the board are flamboyant. Mm-hmm. And I have an issue with that. Going back to the books, I don't want these things right in our children's faces. And, am I wrong for that?
No, look, it goes back to the agenda. And like I said, whatever you want to call it, socialist, woke,
Yeah.
whatever. It goes back to the agenda that is pushing the sexualization of our children. And no, I think you're right. Like, it's not about the fact that whatever their sexual orientation is.
I just don't want to know.
Right, exactly.
That's all.
I don't go walking up to someone on the street like, hey, what's your sexual orientation? Right?
You know what I'm saying?
I don't want to know. But I think what you're picking up on is the fact that there are, and this is not, not even talking about these two candidates. Let's talk about the broader scope of American
That's
culture.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
There is a push to insert these values, and values normally has a positive connotation. I think these are harmful values. I think these undermine things that help people have a better life. Like our children, especially young children, should not be exposed to sexual content, whether it's straight or gay.
Right.
Age. Like, just let them be children. Let our
let
children
them be kids.
Be children again.
Right.
Right. Yes.
Right.
And so I think, look, there is nothing wrong with being concerned or worried about people who want to come in, have an agenda that want to sexualize our children. That should not be involved in our education system. It should not be involved in our libraries. And we absolutely not only have a right, but I believe a duty to call that out and to say, no, let's return to our education system believing and teaching real facts again.
Because when people
reading, writing, and arithmetic, we're failing. We're failing in our common things. What we're spending our time on is teaching our children how to be, tolerant or whatever these things are. Like,
but no, one of these people is in BLM. They're literally Black Lives Matter. So here again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that is an antichrist movement. That is a homosexual movement.
Look,
and the point I'm making here is, how can you not think that it's an agenda?
It is an agenda
for these people to come on our school boards.
No, that's exactly right. Look, and it goes back to, once again, like with that, the whole purpose of this is to divide. It's to divide parents from their children. It's to divide people of different backgrounds and put us into groups where we're fighting with each other instead of coming together as a whole. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And so it all goes back to creating this division, this negativity. And I think there's a root goal behind it. And I'm going to tell you what I believe it is.
Please.
Going back to the library thing for a second, the president of the American Library Association, or the former president, immediate past president, when she got elected, she tweeted and she admitted, she's like, I never thought I would see the day when an open lesbian Marxist would be elected to president of the National Library Association. And then since that time, she's made several comments about how they have the ability to change culture by inserting values into the library, especially in children's sections.
Absolutely.
And so this is an agenda, and we know it is. I actually thank her for being so honest.
Yeah.
Because that allows that, we don't have to be conspiracy theorists.
Right.
This is fact. And I think in order to get to that goal of Marxism, where we have an all-powerful centralized government that controls people's lives, they have to destroy the foundation we have here in America, freedom. And in order to do that, I think you have to get rid of three things. I think you have to get rid of a strong local community. You have to destroy the family unit, and you have to destroy faith in God in our churches and putting God.
I'm watching that all around.
Think about where the target comes. Is it not those three things? They're destroying our communities, they're destroying the family, and they're destroying our churches and God, and faith in God. And I think those are the things that are under attack, and that's where the culture war is right now. That's why we have to be fighting to protect these pillars of our society and stand up for them and say, look, no, we're going to fight for what's right. We're not going to be shy about it, and we're going to expose this agenda.
Outstanding. Here's a bitey one.
So that last one wasn't?
Well, for me it wasn't. But this one is a bitey one for me. And that is this. I make no bones about it. I love me some John Wahl.
I appreciate that.
I love me some Katie Britt. I love me some Meemaw. How am I going to... You guys come behind the governor, thank you. But my point is that I make my love known hard. I let it be known when I'm a little disappointed.
That's fair.
You guys are very staunch supporters of President Trump, whom I have always had issue, and now I'm having a few more. I know for a fact, I have had conversations with you, I've had conversations with other people. I love the Alabama Republican Party, but the National Republican Party gives me pause. I want you to talk as a leader of this state, not just a party leader, but moving into a leader of this state. How can you all bring us together in this state a little better as hell and chaos is jumping off all around us?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, look, this is a great question. And you know, Donald Trump is a polarizing figure, and I recognize that. I think you have to go back to the understanding, though, of what he did do for the country as a whole in his first term.
Okay.
Like, look, you may not like his personality. You may not like things he says. You may not like his tweets at 3 a.m. But you have to admit that overall, Americans had a better life with him as president.
I said that. I agreed to that.
You know, and I think that's, for me, that's where a lot of it comes down to. The trouble most people have with Donald Trump is not as much about his policies. It's more about his personality.
Right.
And at the end of the day, a lot of that is driven through, and we're all this way. It's, you know, we were just talking about how we need grace, you know.
Right.
When you got a camera on you 24/7 and you got a press corps that hates your guts, every single thing you do is put through the lens of negativity. And I noticed this the most. I don't know if you watched his commencement address at the University of Alabama when he was in state.
I watched a little bit of it.
It was a very different tone.
It was.
Than what you see of him in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Because he was unfiltered.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't talking to the press that hate him. So he wasn't as on guard. He wasn't as negative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was talking to students. And you
Our
saw
future.
a different side of Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And I really believe that that's more the true side of Donald Trump. And so, look, are we going to solve this overnight? Is everybody going to love Donald Trump? No. But I guess what I would say is, look at his policy, past personality, and think about if you were under that scrutiny and under that pressure all the time, how that would affect you and how you would build a wall and start getting more cagey and more aggressive.
Right.
And so I guess it comes back to give him some mercy. And now I hope we still got some time left, but I hope we're going to start seeing some of his policy issues actually start taking effect and becoming effective here shortly. You know, seeing the cost of living go down again, seeing some of these things. Because what the bottom line is, what we have a lot of American people struggling to make ends meet.
Right.
We got a lot of people who are struggling, you know, in different areas. And I think that's my goal. We've already seen them clean up some of the stuff, like with the things we're talking about with the socialist agenda.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of his executive orders have been powerful.
Now, I have loved that fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just him on that tweeter, him on in front of cameras,
you know,
and it's like it can just be so combative.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and I think it's because you understand who's behind those cameras.
Yeah.
Like, and this is something I tell elected officials all the time. But it's so hard to do. Don't talk to the cameras. Don't talk to the press. Talk through the camera to the American people.
I like that.
Because that's who you need. And I think that's something that anyone in public office or public position struggles with. It's just really hard when you got people who are hating on you and behind that camera who hate your guts, not to get defensive. But you're right. Then it comes through the camera.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I used to joke talking about the tweets. last election cycle, there were a lot of people who were like, take his phone away, right? Like, don't let that man, don't let him tweet, don't let it. And I would always be like in agreement. And then I got to thinking one day, no, look, you may not like it. It may be sarcastic, it may be, but look, we have the most powerful man in the world. Now think about this for a minute. The most powerful man in the world. We have probably not had unfiltered communication. The general public has probably not had unfiltered communication with the President of the United States, the Commander in Chief. I mean, in my lifetime.
Right.
And you got to give, look, you may not like it, but you got to give respect to the fact that this man he's not running this through his political consultants. We know that.
Right.
He's not running it through the comm shop.
Right.
Like, he's putting out direct thoughts to the American public.
Now
I respect that. I respect it. I mean, I don't always agree with it, but I respect it.
And now I'm gracious. I'm going to be even-handed. Now that we have the negative out of the way, man, the way he treated Iran and the way he is dealing with foreign policy and dropping those bombs that previous presidents have balked on, I got to give him that. And I want to say this, when I look at the power of the President of the United States of America, and to know that my friend John, my friend Katie can call him like that, I just love it. Please, how did you guys get him so in love with Alabama? I mean, he's in love with Alabama.
Well, that's a two-way street. I think Alabama's in love with him too.
That's fair.
But there's a couple things. I mean, and I appreciate you, pointing to me as being part of that process, because that is, I think.
It is.
Yeah. I remember it was his first major rally in 2016. Was Lad People Stadium in Mobile. And that started off on the right foot. And then it was fast forward, that was in 2015. Fast forward, I guess, 6 years to the day was a Trump rally in Coleman, where my first event as chairman. New chairman, young chairman, people didn't know what to expect.
How old were you?
I was 34.
Because I remember you were the youngest chairman. Everybody talked about
and people, for my first major event, held the largest political event in Alabama history. Yeah, almost 60,000 people.
Wow.
Still the third largest Trump rally ever. We didn't know how it was going to go. He had just come off of the disaster of the 2020 general election, and in my opinion, the unconstitutional voting practices that led to to that defeat, and didn't know how the public was going to respond. His team didn't know. First rally back, and to see how Alabama responded to him, I think that was a time that that was a low point in his political journey, and I think that response and Alabama having his back, I think that really cemented. He already loved Alabama, but I think that really was a big part of cementing that.
Okay.
And like I said, it was a two-way street. Like, Alabama loves him, he loves Alabama. And I think that journey has just continued. He also seems to like a little Alabama football.
Yeah, he does. Roll Tide, roll.
That's right, roll Tide. To my friend and former, I worked for him in his campaign, Tommy Tupperville. It's not War Eagle, it's Roll Tide.
And now you brought it up. I don't know what to say. It's fantastic. It's strange having an uncontested governor.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's fascinating, and obviously I'm biased. Like I worked in Tupperville's campaign. I served on his transition team.
Okay,
we're friends. Great guy, and look, I have watched him hold a campaign event, and a dishwasher in the back of the restaurant who was an Auburn fan, come up, and I was running the event, and come up to me like, is there any way that I can just shake his hand? I'm an Auburn fan, I love Auburn, and watch, I would go over. I said, tell me before you leave. He wants you watch him go, take him, pull him aside, and talk with him for a few minutes and get a thing and sign something for him, and just take the time to treat him with respect and dignity. And look, I know that I'm saying that and you're like, well, of course, people don't, like politicians don't.
No, they don't.
There's a lot of politicians who think they're better than everybody.
That's right. That's right.
And just watch it. That's why I have so much respect for Tommy Tuberville. He's real. And look, it kind of goes back like Trump, right? You may not agree with every issue, but Tommy Tuberville is going to shoot you straight.
Yeah.
He's going to be honest with you. He's going to shoot you straight. And I think that's why he's gained the respect and the popularity he has across the state, to the point that no one can run against him. Like, look, it's not that people don't want to be governor.
Right.
It's that they know they can't beat Tommy Tuberville.
Yeah.
And I think that, that speaks for itself and what he's been able to do and take this, take the governor's race and just clear the field.
Yeah. Are you ready to talk about you?
Oh, I'm always. I'm the same way as Tuberville. I'm a straight shooter.
All right.
I might not know enough to tell you everything, but I'll tell you what I do know.
Well, I'm gonna cut that little part, and here we go. Well, he's gonna need a right hand.
I mean, that's right. And if we're gonna really change Alabama politics and make Alabama what I think we should be, which is a leader nationally. Look, we got the best people in the entire country, the entire world. I believe in Alabama, and I think we have an opportunity to raise our profile and to become leaders. And that's what I really want to see.
And you gonna do that how, sir?
Well, look, I will tell you this, and this is what I'm telling everybody right now. I am very much looking at potentially running for lieutenant governor. I feel almost a calling. Now, I want to make sure that calling is not me.
Yeah.
That it's the Father.
Yeah.
So I'm praying about it.
Yeah.
I'm praying about it, and I'm talking with my family, and I'm talking to some other folks in the state. But we need someone. I'm going to say this, and if it's me, it would be the honor of a lifetime. But we need someone in that role, in the lieutenant governor's position, who's willing to really stand up, be bold, be fearless when it comes to putting people first again, defending their rights and freedoms. All these things that we talk about, making people's lives better, lowering taxes, putting parents back in control of their education, giving people real options. All these things. These are my passion. This is where my heart beats. And so for me, if the lieutenant governor is the best path to advocate for these values, I mean, look, it's hard for me to say no.
Well, I want you to know that if you run, I'm going to be right by your side.
Well, I appreciate that. It means a lot because, at the end of the day, good leadership is not about the candidate. It's about the team that makes the state better. And I really believe that. So it's a team effort. Now, I kind of, if I run, I think I want my slogan to be something like, together, we can change Alabama forever. Right?
Together, forever, together.
It's gotta be together. We don't need, an aloof leader who's going to just do his own thing. We need someone who's going to stand with the people and build and change, work with them to change Alabama.